those of you who are meeting me for the first time or hearing me speak for the first time, my name is Steve Fretzin. I'm a business development coach for attorneys and law firms. If you haven't had a chance to pick up some books, I've written 3 on the subject of legal marketing and business development, sales-free selling, which is really the story of a coach who works with a number of people, including an attorney, helping them change sales so that it's not salesy into more of a sales-free model, more about questioning, listening, things like that. The Attorney's Networking Handbook, and The Ambitious Attorney. I'm also a columnist for the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. I put a monthly column out, and those articles are also findable on my website, fretzin.com. I'm also the host of Be That Lawyer, which if you haven't checked it out, it's a lot of fun. I'm interviewing rainmakers, top marketing professionals in the legal space, and just having great conversations and trying to give tips and takeaways for people that are interested in that kind of information. My marketing assistant, Haley, is on the call. She wants to just explain a few administrative things before we get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation today. Haley?
Hi, everybody. I'm Haley. Thanks for attending today. I just want to let you know everybody's on mute so we can just keep noise to a minimum. But feel free to use the chat feature to ask any questions, to elaborate on a certain point that Steve makes, or comment if something's helpful to you. If we have time during the presentation, we'll answer some questions. There's also time set aside at the end for questions as well. If for some reason, due to time constraints, we're unable to get to them, Steve will reach back out to you with an email answering your question as well. Enjoy the presentation.
Absolutely. Also, just a real quick comment too, that at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be emailing everybody a survey. I think it's only 4 questions. It'll take you literally a minute to do, but it's going to provide feedback on the presentation, things I need to change, where there was value, etc. And I'm not charging for this presentation, for this content information. So it would really be meaningful to me if you could take just a minute once you get that survey to fill that out, send it back to me. It's going to be super helpful. So with that, I'm going to jump in and talk through what the agenda is going to be for the next 55 minutes. We're going to talk a little bit about the changes the pandemic has had and how it affects your law practice, how it affects, say, your clients. And we're going to jump into then some pros and cons as it relates to Zoom. Obviously, everybody's got an opinion about it, and I want to share some thoughts I have as someone who works with attorneys all over the country and every day. Talk a bit about how to make Zoom a little more engaging. I think we have to sort of learn something new. And anytime there's a new media that's out there, LinkedIn, social media, Zoom, we have to try to look at best practices to improve what we're doing and really make it meaningful, make it really work for you. I'm also going to spend some time on LinkedIn. I know that some of you are heavy users and maybe some of you aren't, but I just want to give you some tips and tricks and ideas about how to be more active and get more value out of that tool, because it really is one of the best things that's ever been created for business development. And then lastly, leveraging low-hanging fruit to make good use of your time. Those are also really important things. I want to do a poll real quick just to get a flavor for what's going on here. Hang on a second. So I'm going to launch this poll. I'd like you guys to take 10 seconds and just answer the questions if you would. It's just asking you, what are your main challenges as it relates to business development during the pandemic? If you wouldn't mind putting those answers out real quick, we'll just get your numbers up on the screen. I'm not sure where to start. Lack of a solid game plan, a written plan. I'm very busy, don't have time. Hate doing it, don't want to be salesy. I'm unsure of how to get in front of high-level decision makers. And then I don't want to bother people during the pandemic. So let's see how this comes out. Still got some people finishing it up. Very interesting. Okay, so let me share that with you. And here's what we have. Okay, we have 34% not sure where to start. Also might be 40%. I'm very busy. I get that. It's amazing how busy everybody is with the pandemic, but it's true. People are super busy. I get that. Hate doing it. 31% on unsure how to get in front of high level people, and then don't want to bother people during the pandemic. And that's only at 11%. So I think that's a really good indicator from this group of what we can talk about here today. Okay, so let's get into this together, and let's take stock of what's changed. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly so I can get to everything. So what's changed other than everything? It's really crazy how much has changed in the last 6-7 months. And obviously we're mainly virtual. I think people are playing a little golf, or we're playing a little golf, and some coffees, some socially distanced coffees were happening. But I think a lot of this virtual stuff is going on. And I think we're going to have to talk about how to lean into it a little bit. How are you adapting to the new normal? Are you stressed? Are you angry? Are you upset? There's a lot of political stuff going on. There's a lot of business stuff going on. There's courts that are jammed up, litigation and jury trials are at a halt. So there's that kind of stuff going on. The other thing to think about is your business up or down. Are you seeing the pandemic as something where there's a boost in business, or things are really kind of slowing down, or maybe the season is ending? Like I know, like in residential real estate, the summer is huge. Things start to slow down. So consider that, and then what you might have to do about that. What do you need to change to succeed today? What's different now that you may have to make some changes? And what's going to change next year? We're kind of wrapping up 2020, thank God, right? But 2021's coming up, and we need to start planning for that future. And consider what's changed in your clients' lives and business personally, and how are they managing this? And again, it might be a great opportunity to offer more value, to add some assistance to your clients. Let's take another poll real quick. I've got another question for you. So hang tight. Let me get that out. This is a real quick one. All right. So has using Zoom improved or worsened your business development efforts? Very curious about what this looks like. Do this real quick, everybody, so we can get back to business. Oh, this is interesting. I'll share this with you in a moment. Okay, I'm going to give 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and so here's the results of that. It's pretty even. 44% are saying it's worsened, and 56% are saying that it's actually improved. So that's a really interesting question there about how has this been for your business development efforts? And I understand why that's the case, because there's just a lot of different things going on as it relates to how we used to do business development and how we're now able to do business development. So let's talk about Zoom in more detail and get to the point of that. So what are the pros and cons of Zoom? Let's start with the cons first, the negatives. And I'm sure you have your own, but here's the list I came up with. Number one is it's certainly less personal than face-to-face. I mean, pressing flesh, smiling, eye contact, meeting someone for coffee, having a lunch. This is how business development has been done in the past. And so we're missing that element of it. So I get that that's been a challenge. Also, I don't know about you, with my adult ADHD, right? Very hard to keep focus. And I also find myself like multitasking while I'm on a call with somebody, which is sort of bad news. So we also find ourselves doing that. Is it a little more difficult to build meaningful relationships over the internet? Absolutely, it's more challenging. So we're going to have to be more focused than ever to do it. And then our Zoom calls getting interrupted by poor internet signals, children and pets, and people talking over one another, right? So these are the kinds of things that we're dealing with that are definitely negative. And then of course, the final one is it can be exhausting. And I'm not sure about all you, but for me, I was having something like 3 to 4 meetings a day in person in the Loop in Chicago. Now I have somewhere between 7 and 10 meetings a day, all on Zoom. So it's exhausting staring at a screen, interacting with a screen, and the Zoom fatigue sets in. Now, that all being said, what are the positives or pros of Zoom? Number one is, video meetings are far better than using the phone. So in the past, you would talk to a client in Seattle or Denver, and you'd have this phone call, and it was fine. It was what it was, but video calls are just flat out better than phone calls. You can look at somebody, you can see their environment. Chances are they might even be a little nicer to you because they're seeing you and you're seeing them. Where on the phone, maybe they'd be a little darker. So that's really an important point. Number two, as I mentioned, how many meetings I have. Not only that, but I have meetings in California, Boston, Atlanta, all in the same day. That would never have happened in the past, right? You can't travel around and have a day like that. So the fact that we're virtual allows us a lot more flexibility in how we get around and meet with various people. It improves the efficiency of your communication, things like screen sharing, being able to talk through presentations more effectively than maybe sending something over an email. The idea that we can walk people through what our thoughts are, talk through questions, learn about them. These are all things that has improved the efficiency. And it also increases opportunities to get in front of high-level decision makers. Now, hear me out on this. Normally, if you reached out to a general counsel that you know for many years, they might be reluctant to grab a lunch with you because it's 30 minutes to get there. It's an hour and a half lunch, and then it's 30 minutes to get out of there. They might have 2 or 3 hours invested in a lovely lunch with you at your favorite restaurant. And they might put you off or turn you down or reject you on that because they're busy. A 30-minute, 45-minute Zoom call, it's much easier to sell that or get that cooking than if it's a face-to-face. So this may give you an opportunity where that didn't exist before, and people are also maybe a little slower and they're more open to taking that kind of meeting. And of course, there's a variety of tools, as I mentioned, screen sharing, recording, polling, annotating. There's ways to make this interactive. I teach classes multiple times a week to lawyers all over the country. And the idea that I can put them into breakout rooms, right, and have them role play through scenarios or have them work on things together, come back and then share their findings. It's so much more interactive than a phone call would be, or than just the way we used to do things. So really look at some of the positives of Zoom, not just the negatives. Obviously, there's 2 sides to that coin. Okay. Lastly, it's the new normal. So get over it. I think when we do go back to meeting face-to-face, Zoom is not going to go away. We're all appreciating the efficiency of it. And I think it's going to stay as a general part of how we do business. All right. Now let's get into the top 10 tips. Maybe the reason why you're on this call or what you were hoping to get out of this meeting today is to look at how do I become a better Zoom player? How do I use this tool in a way that's going to get me better results for business development, for client relationships, for networking, etc. All right, so I'm going to go through the 10 tips and then we're going to take a deeper dive into some social media. So number 1 is set the stage. All right, what I'm talking about is your background. My background is Be That Lawyer. My background is an autographed Michael Jordan jersey. I'm consistently having people comment on one of those 2 things in a positive way. Either you love Michael Jordan or you like my tagline and you want to be that lawyer and you appreciate what that means. That's part of it. I've got some lights over here that are facing right at me so that I'm well lit. And I'm also framed fairly well. I'm paying attention to my framed here or my framed here. All right, I want to make sure that the framing is appropriate. And some people just aren't paying attention to that. And I think it's a misstep because you want to make sure that you're taking care of that as a sort of a basic point of Zoom. Number 2 is be professional, look the part. All right, you don't want to show up in your pajamas. You want to make sure that you look the part. If I'm talking with my clients, maybe I have a sweater on or I have a polo shirt. For a presentation like this, normally I'd wear a button-down shirt or maybe a jacket. For you guys, you don't get the jacket. Sorry. Not that you're not worth it, but it's it's also kind of warm in my office here. So we want to approach these meetings with confidence. And I think you dress for success, and you want to make sure that you are stepping up, not stepping down on your calls. Number 3, and this is a really important one, is body language. If you've never heard of NLP before, you can Google it after we're done, but it stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro-linguistic programming is the art of body language and how we filter information. So the idea that I'm looking at the camera and making eye contact, very different than looking down at somebody down here or looking over here. Now, granted, I'm watching my PowerPoint and trying to make eye contact, but you want to make that effort for the eye contact using hand gestures. Remember, we're building on top of the tips. So I'm using my hands to gesture and make sure that I'm getting bought in to whatever it is that I'm talking about. So having your hands crossed like this may not be great, or just having them down at your sides the whole time, but communicate with your body as well as your eyes. That's really, really important. One of the things that NLP talks about is a tactic called mirroring. And if you're seeing that someone is talking with their hands, or you see that they're making good eye contact, you want to reciprocate on those gestures, because mirroring is all about empathy and people feeling like they fit in. And if you're building relationships with people and they're going one direction and you're going the other, that's really not going to play out well if you're looking to build a relationship that's going to be cohesive. Right? So these are the kinds of things that are small, but they're impactful when you're on a Zoom. Right? It also keeps people's attention better. Tip number 4 is do your research. This is a big misstep, that you're getting on calls with people, on Zoom calls, and you're not doing your research, okay? You need to review someone's website, their LinkedIn, their Facebook, Google their name. The goal of relationship building in most cases is to try to find some common ground. Now, you can find common ground with me by mentioning the Michael Jordan jersey, and you like Michael Jordan. However, that's more of an observational way to connect with me. A better way to connect with me is, and this has happened a number of times in the last week, someone has emailed me and said, hey, Steve, I listened to your most recent podcast with this person, and I thought it was really great. You guys talked about business development in a way I hadn't thought of before. Now you're really connecting with me. Now you've got my attention. You've got my buy-in, right? I'm a lover of people. And when you mention something that I've written, something I've done, and it plays to my ego, and everybody, we try to keep our ego in check. But at the end of the day, that's going to get more momentum with me and more common ground or more buy-in than making an observation about the weather, the traffic, COVID. I certainly don't get into politics, okay? But that's what we want to do to start building relationship with icebreakers, is using the internet as a tool for getting information that we can ask questions around. So hopefully you're doing that. If not, that could be enough of the takeaway for this whole presentation if you just did that, if you haven't been up till now. Tip number 5 is Zoom meeting do's. Utilize the various functions to drive that interaction. Use the screen sharing, share a presentation, talk someone through an article, okay? Provide live demos, use the annotations. I'm not using annotation today because my handwriting's terrible. Generally, my handwriting's even worse with a mouse. But if you have decent handwriting or you can write with a mouse, annotating on a presentation, on a screen, really, really helpful to make a point. And of course, chatting and polling, as you're seeing, we're doing that today to interact with you, even though you're muted. The idea that I can still have Haley track down questions or just kind of pay attention to the chat feature while I'm presenting, I think is really useful. Tip number 6, use breakout rooms to drive that interaction. Again, if you're in a one-on-one, that may not be a good use of time. But if you're in a group, you're with your department, you're with your practice area group, you're with your associates, whatever the case might be, come up with something that you guys want to work on together and then break out into groups. Okay, talk about the subject, work it through, then come back and make that discussion interactive. It's really, really helpful. And it definitely increases your chance of engagement versus someone talking, like I am, give or take, but talking straight through or just kind of talking to you. Anytime you can break things out and start to get some interaction, if that's, again, makes sense for the people you're with, that's what you're going to want to do. Ask more questions. The reality is that we spend too much time in these interactive meetings not being interactive. We talk and we share our long, boring stories. We one-up people with our stories better than their story. Really try to focus on the other person. All right, when you're speaking to a prospective client, potential strategic partner, make the engagement mostly about that other person. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 80-20 rule as it relates to a prospective client meeting or a strategic partner meeting, but really try to make it more about them. And what happens is people will like you and appreciate you more if you're talking less and allowing them to talk more. And obviously, if you're prepared with great questions, that's going to be, a very, very happy way to go. Tip number 8, pay attention to the other person's body language, energy, focus. I think what's happening is we're starting to fade. I'm looking down at my phone. You can see I'm typing, right? I'm looking over here. And if you see that you're in a meeting with somebody and that's what's going on, try to really stay focused, make eye contact, use your hands. Again, use the tools on Zoom to make this interactive. And if you see that this is a trend where people are kind of multitasking or not focusing when they're speaking to you, maybe that's telling you something, that you're going to have to do a better job at using Zoom in a more interactive and engaging way. There's just no way around it because you're losing people that could end up being, kind of an important client or an important prospective client for you. Number 9 is set an agenda. One of the things that I've seen happen on these Zoom meetings, and I'm in a lot of networking, groups and meetings and things like that, and they're going off the rails. I mean, people are just talking about crazy stuff, or they're launching into politics, or they're launching into the weather of the day. It's totally off topic of why you're meeting and what you both want to accomplish or wanted to accomplish in this meeting. So let's say, for example, that you're meeting someone it's a networking meeting, okay? You do something and I do something and we share the same types of clients. Let's say that's the case. What we want to focus on is we want to focus on sharing the time of how long we're going to meet, the purpose, why are we getting together, what are the expectations, in this case, maybe how we're going to split up the talk time, and what would be a good potential outcome. And if you share those 4 points with somebody and they stick to it or you keep them to it, you're going to have a lot more effective meeting than something where we start off talking about Michael Jordan and that goes on for 20 minutes. And then I ask a question and you go off for another half hour about your business and an interesting client engagement you have. And now we're at an hour or whatever the time is. And we never really learned about each other. We never really networked. We never got down to it. So these are the kinds of small things, again, that add up to having a less effective Zoom call. And I will give you a specific agenda that I use if you're interested in taking this down as a note. But what I find with networking is that they can go all over the place. So what I'll do is after building some relationships, so I'm talking with Bob, and Bob and I have spent 5 minutes, building relationship. Of course, I did my research. I found some interesting things about Bob. We talked about those. And then I say the following, Bob, we can probably talk about, platform tennis and how much fun it is and how much we both enjoy it for hours. But I know how valuable your time is. And I thought just to make the best use of our time, it would be okay just to set up a little game plan. Bob agrees because he wants to make good use of his time as well. I would follow up with, I know we had agreed on 45 minutes. We've got about 40 left. And from my perspective, the purpose was just to get to know one another and see if there are ways that we can add value as well. Is that how you see it? Bob agrees. What I thought might work best, Bob, is if you took 15 minutes and shared more about your business, how you help people, and the kinds of connections you're looking for, right? So I have a clear understanding. And then if I could take 15 minutes and do the same, it might be a good way to kind of split up the talk time. He agrees. And I say, and look, at the end of the meeting, if we feel like there's some synergies, maybe we can take a baby step forward and find some mutual connection for one another that would be, meaningful or helpful. And again, if not, no problem, but that might be a good next step for us. How does that sound? Bob agrees. So in a 90-second agenda, I've established the time frame that we can stick to, the purpose, which is to see if there's a fit, that we're going to split up the talk time, and there could be some specific next step that we talk about at the end of the meeting, if appropriate. So I'm not allowing it to go off the rails because I'm establishing some ground rules ahead of time. So that's a really good tip, I think, for you in starting your Zoom meetings to build some relationship and then have some form of an agenda that everything stays on track. My final point, and this is something I really believe in strongly, is you have to avoid the Zoom fatigue by getting up and walking around. So every hour and a half, get away from your desk, go walk. I've been taking my dog for a walk. I've been going and meeting my wife for lunch. I've been doing things that have really been great for me and also keeping me, nimble in the sense that I'm not getting all stiff and staring at a screen the whole time. I need to take those breaks. Also, I don't know if you noticed this, I could do jumping jacks, but I'm standing up, right? So having a standing desk or having a topper for a converter for your desk that lifts up so you're not sitting all day. The idea that you can stand up, sit down, and be mobile. In addition, I will tell you, and I've gotten feedback from my clients, that I am a better presenter, I'm a better orator when I'm standing. When I'm on my feet thinking and I'm talking and I'm working, I use my hands more effectively. So that's something you want to really consider as a part of getting more out of Zoom. All right. So hopefully those 10 points, again, if you can take away 2 or 3 out of 10, I would be thrilled. Hopefully you took away more, but again, this is all a work in progress. We all have to continue to improve. I'm learning all the time, just like you're learning all the time. We have to continue to get better and better and better.
Hey, Steve, before we move on, we have a question for tip 1.
Awesome. For tip number 1?
Yeah, for setting a background. So
okay, what's the question?
Do you have any recommendations if someone doesn't have space to set up a background and tends to use the virtual backgrounds instead?
I would just say this. I'm not a huge fan of and again, this is my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I'm not a fan of the virtual backgrounds, mainly because sometimes the person's face gets lost. Like it's like this, or it's distracting. Like I'm sitting there staring at the most beautiful Utah sky while someone's talking, and I start to daydream about going to that place. So I get concerned about the virtual backgrounds and the way that it interacts with your body. And sometimes it gets a little fuzzy, especially if you're on let's say you're on a call with a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and your virtual background gets weird. It's just not great. So what I would say is buy some kind of screen behind you or some kind of wall behind you, something that you can either put up a banner stand, like that's what I have is a banner stand, something with your logo or something with your firm name, professional. I know I was on a call with someone from Bierman the other day and they had their logo right up there. That might be a virtual background with their logo, but anyway, it was pretty slick and clean. I think clean and not distracting. So I think bookshelves can be distracting. I think seeing administrative things like printers in the background can be distracting. So we really want to consider maybe getting some form of a backdrop to go up behind you that's maybe an off-white or something. That might be a good way to go. Okay, very good question though. All right, let's get back to where we were. We're transitioning now from specifically Zoom, although this could also be through Zoom, in social media, because I think this is an opportunity to either get ahead or get left behind as it relates to our buy into social media. All right. And so we want to try to look at social media and look at how to be more effective with it. So the first thing you want to consider is to understand your audience wants and needs. If my audience is made up of lawyers, what are they looking for? They're looking for content. They're looking for tips. They're looking for ideas. So how do I promote that? I promote that through video, podcast, articles, books, okay, presentations. This is what my audience wants. This is what I'm providing, and it's working. I'm getting my name out there. Most of you know me, or either worked it with me or been to a presentation before, but you need to consider who your audience is. Are you a banking attorney and you're looking to get in front of bankers? You need to be prepared for how you're going to communicate that through social media. And either you're part of the conversation or you're being left behind. I know we can say social media has never been more inundated with posts and posting and everything else. I get it. It's kind of a bad time as far as there's so much content, but also if you're not a part of the conversation, that's also a problem. Educate yourself or your assistant on how to post properly. Gary, I know Gary's on this call, and Gary and I were talking about, he wrote this article, and you may have seen my post today on LinkedIn, but, and I won't say Gary's last name, so there we go. But Gary was, he takes the time to write an article, his firm puts it up on their website, and it's just like dead at that point. It's just hidden. Nobody knows where it is. No one's ever going to click it. There's no action on it. So this is something where we have to talk about how do we post properly? How do we put things up on social media? What kind of image, hashtags, how do we get it marketed properly? And so that's something you're going to want to, and I'm going to do a little bit of a demo on LinkedIn in a few minutes, and I'll explain a few things that I do that you might find helpful. Be authentic, offer value to your audience. So again, social media is an opportunity to take an angle to show your personal side as well as your business side. And you're seeing a number of other people getting ahead by doing that. One of my past clients and good friends is a guy named Dan Gershenson. He's a legal writer, general writer, just an amazing writer. And also he does general marketing, but he does these rants on LinkedIn, and I love him because he's being honest and he's giving his honest opinion about things he doesn't like. And I'm almost like now a student of his, because now I want to rant about things that piss me off. And I think that gets people's attention because they want to read authentic posts, not just here's an article that I found in Forbes and then you're just reposting. That's not as authentic or real about you. Have consistency in your messaging. So be that lawyer is my thing. That's what I claim to do for attorneys and work every day to accomplish. And that is in my LinkedIn, that's behind me, that's on my website. You want to have consistency so that you finish up and start with messaging that's going to resonate with your audience. And lastly, it's social media. So you need to be social with it. It isn't just post it and leave it. It's post it and interact with it. Get other people interactive with it. Like and comment on other people's posts. They'll like and comment on yours. It's a little bit of a game sometimes, but we have to play the game sometimes to be in the game. Okay. And we're going to do one final poll today about LinkedIn that I'm curious about. So hold on a second. I'll put that up. All right. So the question is to rate yourself on a scale between 1 and 5 on using LinkedIn for branding yourself and growing new business. So take 10 seconds and fill that out. How good are you at LinkedIn? 1 is I don't use it at all, don't need it, don't like it, it's no good. Got 50 connections and it's just sitting there like a tomato rotting in the sun. Or it's something where you're posting daily, you're driving lead generation, you're getting all kinds of engagement out of it. Okay, so this is really interesting. I'll share this with you. So look at this. We've got pretty much everybody in the middle between a 2 and a 3. You can see very few people up here getting value as a 5, and everyone is sort of on it or barely on it, or not many people aren't engaged in some way, shape, or form, I should say. So that's a really interesting poll. Appreciate your taking a moment to do that with me. So let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn and why it's such an important part of our lives as business professionals. What's the value? And like most things, it's going to be what you put into it is what you get out of it. So really it's acting even more so than your website as your online resume. Where else can you post articles, videos, get testimonials, recommendations, right? You as lawyers cannot talk about how great you are and that you're an expert at X, Y, and Z. But what if other people say that you're an expert? Other people share how great you are. That's a really important thing that you can put on your online resume, okay, amongst other things. It provides that built-in audience for your posts. So if you have 500 or 1,000, or in my case, over 8,000 people in your LinkedIn, those are my followers. When I post something, they have the opportunity to review, read, comment, share a post. If you don't have anyone in your LinkedIn, then your audience is virtually no one. It also allows you to access connectors and decision makers normally unattainable. So if you are targeting general counsels, if you're targeting CFOs, or people in specific industries that can refer you, LinkedIn is a great way to do it. I'm making connections all the time with people that I've never met by having common people introduce us, or by reaching out to them proactively with a compliment about their website or about something they do and getting into a dialogue with them, right? Trying to find new guests on my podcast. I mean, I'm using LinkedIn every day for these purposes. Okay. It's very easy to begin new and beneficial relationships using LinkedIn if you have a good approach. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick demo for you guys so I can kind of give you some ideas of what I'm talking about. So here's my LinkedIn profile. And again, not bragging about it being great, but I've spent some time on it to kind of make sure it looks good. Notice I've got my banner, Be That Lawyer. I've got a very professional picture. All right. I have all of my contact information filled out. My LinkedIn, my website, my podcast, okay, address, phone number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then all the way down here, it's complete and filled out. Don't have a 1-sentence about. Make the about something that really lets people get to know who you are, what you do, why are you valuable? Okay, what makes you valuable in your industry? In my case, what I decided to do is take a few of my testimonials and put them up on my about. Now, again, you wouldn't do that, but that's something that I did. And I think it's helpful because I think lawyers want to know from other lawyers, is this Steve Fretzin guy real, or is he fake? And I think you want to do your research like that one way or the other. All right. Then I'm able to add all the different videos, articles, things that I have. Moving down, again, all really fully filled out. And this is another point I want to mention is the recommendations. Now, if you're at a big firm, they may have specific policies against getting recommendations. And so you might want to check with your marketing people, or if it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but that might be another idea. And so there you might want to consider going out and asking for recommendations. So you have a client that you just crushed it for that client. and got him a huge, award or a quick dismissal or whatever. The client's super happy. And you say, I appreciate your enthusiasm and I feel great about the job we did. If I was to send you a LinkedIn recommendation request of just talking about the successes we've had, would you mind writing 2 or 3 sentences about that? And the guy's like, oh my God, I'd love to do that. And he goes off and talks about what an amazing lawyer you are. People read these. This is like, I don't go to a restaurant until I know the reviews, until I see what people are saying. That's the way we're making decisions. And it's like putting another plus in your column, another star on your book or on your Yelp page. It helps. So this is another element of having a really good and full and robust profile, which acts as your personal website. So you want to have that. Another thing that's important to understand is to understand your connections. So when you go to My Network up here and you see that your connection, what are your connections? And you have to make decisions about how many connections you want, who you want your connections to be. And again, for me, I want it to be primarily lawyers and people that work in the legal industry. And I'm willing to connect with really any lawyer. It doesn't have to be a client or a personal friend. You may want to take a more careful approach to who you connect with. Maybe you want to keep it to 300 to 500 and keep it like a really tight, close knit network. That's a choice that you need to make based on what your LinkedIn strategy is. Mine is shout from the rooftops. Here's who I am. Here's what I do. Any lawyer that needs help, I'm your guy, or use my content because I think it'll be helpful. And maybe eventually you'll come around or you won't, but either way, again, I'm trying to be useful in the industry. If that's not your thing and you want to just do internal networking with clients and with your strategic partners and your tight network, that is also a totally fine strategy. There also might be a strategy that says, I don't want to deal with this. I'm busy. I'll never want to deal with this. And then just get off LinkedIn. That's fine too. If you don't want to interact, be off of it. And that's not, so like a managing partner he's 65 years old, doesn't want anything to do with LinkedIn. Or, like, I get it. Like, don't be on it. That's fine. That's a strategy that counts. All right, 2 more points I'm going to go through. One is about posting. I went from posting maybe 3 times a week to posting every day. And the reason is because so many people are locked at home or locked in their office that they're spending more time on LinkedIn. So I wanted to make sure that I'm continually putting out positive and helpful content on a regular basis. So when you look at my posts, they're not all going to have the same level of engagement, but whatever the case is, it is adding value. It is driving traffic to my website so people can learn more. It definitely is working. Okay. So here's that point I made about a client who posted an article and didn't get any kind of social media engagement from his team. The article is not getting in the hands of prospects or clients. No one's tracking it to see like how either the newsletter's doing or how that article is doing. So that's a real problem. Here's a 3-minute video I pulled from this presentation today that I posted. Is my 3-minute video of the week. Okay, and here's my podcast with Brian Weinthal, who is phenomenal. I mean, this is a guy who you can learn from. This is a rainmaker who has built the business, and hearing us discuss it is really helpful. So I want to do that. Now, here's the interesting thing. Notice that within my post, I mentioned Brian. I put an @ symbol before his name. When I do that, it automatically then includes him as a link in here, and it gets then shared with his network. He then went ahead and shared my post with his own commentary, and that's getting a lot of traffic, a lot of traction. So again, this is an opportunity to interact, to engage, to ask questions, and to share it with other people. So you want to make sure that if you mention somebody, or if you mention the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin, mention their name. If you mention another person in that post, put the @ symbol before their name, and this will pop up. Have a link, and then have a bunch of hashtags that are relevant to the subject matter. So this is how we're posting. And again, the goal is to get interaction down here. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was about how to be proactive. And most of you know this. I hope most of you know this. But if I want to try to get some business from, let's say, a client, all right, and I look up, okay, so here's, all right, here's Gary Chodes. So for example, this is a friend of mine. He's not a client. But this is someone I've known for many, many years. And let's say I want to try to get in and see who he knows as far as lawyers. Okay. I could click on his connections. It's going to pull up 993 results. And I can sit there and go through, 100 pages of his contacts, or I can start to get it whittled down. So I click on contacts, first degree we have in common, don't need that. Now we're down to 957, so that's not great. Let's say I want to focus on Greater Chicago. That's going to knock it down to 197. So that's almost 200 results. That's only looking through 20 pages of contacts. And I can just start here and I can just scroll down and say, oh, here's the president of Vetter Price. I think we may have some Vetter Price people on the call, not sure. But here's someone who hasn't accepted my invite yet. Ooh, darn, okay. But maybe I could go through Gary. So now I call Gary, I say, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with Michael. He's not responding to my LinkedIn request. How well do you know Michael? He says, Michael and I go way back. We're best buddies. Steve, if you want to get in front of Michael, I'm your guy. Now he's going to set up a three-way call, or he's going to set up an introduction at a much higher level than I was able to, as you can see from the screen, unable to get in touch with the managing partner of that firm, but maybe my contact can get me through. So this is how we want to start to do our networking. And even when I meet with clients or strategic partners that I've invested some time with already, I can go through their LinkedIn, pull up 5 or 10 names that look interesting for me. I can tell them to do the same. Then when we network, it's much more focused, because I'm bringing names, they're bringing names. And I think 5 or 10 years ago, that was sort of unsettling. And today it's actually very helpful. I think people are more open to it, and it actually streamlines the conversation to be a better conversation than me trying to coach somebody through a name or trying to get them to say the name of a client or a friend. It's just, that's a little more challenging of an assignment. You can also do this for industries or companies. So if I want to look up Bell Inc., okay, and that's not a good example. Let's say, here's Bell, okay. So if I want to get into Bell, that's a company I'm interested in. Here's 33,000 employees. I click on that. And then what I'm looking for is I'm looking for second, hold on a second. I'm looking for second degree connections. Let's see if I have any. Oh, wow, bad example. Let's try Walgreens. All right, so I'm a real estate attorney. I'm not, but let's say I'm a real estate attorney. I want to get into Walgreens. They've got a lot of real estate work. Okay, so I'm going through second degree connections. Again, first degree connections I already know. Second degree are the ones I don't. And what it does is it shows you who knows that person. So here's the CEO of Alliance RX Walgreens Prime, Joel. That's who I want to meet. And I see that my friend Aaron Citron knows this individual. So now I would call up Aaron or email Aaron, say, hey, I see you know Joel. How do you know him? If he doesn't, I might move on to Lauren, if I know Lauren well, okay? Or maybe I want to talk with someone else. So this is how we're able to kind of get through and use it as a proactive networking or prospecting tool. And again, this could be 30 minutes a week that you just sit your laptop on your lap, you're watching some crazy show on Prime, and you pull up what you're looking for here. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, just to give you a little bit more about LinkedIn, setting up your profile, bringing in the right people, posting regularly, and again, learn more about posting, because I think there's a lot of intricacies there you want to get down. And then lastly, using it as a proactive prospecting tool as a way to get in the door, maybe where you haven't been able to in the past. Okay, we're going to wrap up with just pulling this back up. How to leverage low-hanging fruit for success. And this is something I work with my clients on, because there's so many different things that you can do to build a law practice. And what I don't want to see happen is you spinning your wheels, attending networking events that aren't useful, joining boards and being on boards for years where you get nothing out of it. It used to be people would do like 5 or 10 years of presenting in associations and literally have nothing to show for it other than a lot of hours put into it. And we want to make sure that you look at the low-hanging fruit as how can I get business quickly, easy and efficiently with what I have now, or that I could build out from there. So let's look at that. Number one is build your brand. Focus on your name, your firm, whatever you want to focus on, mostly you, and build your brand through social media, blogging, video, speaking. You need to be out there and visible to the audience. If you're a hidden secret, that's no good. If I want to work with the top brain surgeon in the world because I've got a tumor in my head, I don't want to, work with the wrong person. I want to find the person that is most likely to save my life and remove that tumor. And that's going to be someone that I've seen over and over and over again speaking on the news, or maybe it's someone that just is well known by my peers. That's who I want to work with as the doctor to fix my brain tumor in this made up scenario. I'm fine. I'm healthy, everybody. Number two is create a list of clients, referral partners, and prospective clients. It is astounding how many lawyers I work with that don't have that down. Like, this is the most basic thing that you need to do. And if you learn nothing else today, this would be the thing you'd want to do, is you want to get your list of clients, write them down, put them down on an Excel spreadsheet, and even rank them as A, B, or C, because those are the people you're going to want to spend more time with. Those are the people that you can ask for introductions. Those are the people that there might be upsell or cross-sell opportunities. Someone that does $100,000 a year with you is going to be a more important client, and probably you're more involved with them than someone did a $5,000 matter 10 years ago. So we definitely want to get these lists together, and that's going to get you emailing people, calling people, Zooming with people. But if you don't have a list, or you don't have any names in front of you, I can imagine you're sitting in front of your computer with an hour of free time or with a gap in your day, and you're just going to fill it with something else. You're not going to be thinking about who you should be reaching out to or staying in touch with. And that's a low-hanging fruit. Do that like this weekend. It'll take you an hour, and you'll have this great list of people that you can reach out to proactively. Number three is join the right networking groups to meet new professionals. There's a lot of networking options. Many of them have moved to virtual. Shameless promotion, I'm in a group called Provisors, which is a national group that has 12 groups in Chicago. I'm going to be the group leader for the North Shore, which is not opened yet. P.S. If you have interest in that, reach out to me about that networking group. But it's professionals with experience. They get networking. They want to network with other high-level professionals. You have to be qualified to kind of get in. You have to kind of pass some litmus tests to get in. So again, it isn't for everybody, but it's for really people that get it and want to proactively network and help others and be helped. So look out for those groups, and then if you get into one, be as active as you can. Number four, ask your clients for more business or quality introductions. Now, one of the biggest fears that lawyers have is the fear of asking for something from their clients. So what I would suggest is that you want to get that list of clients together and come up with an approach that's comfortable for you. One approach that I talk about regularly is called the networking approach. And it's essentially saying to your client, look, we're working together all the time. My guess is that there's probably some internal or external connections we may be able to help each other with. Can we have a separate conversation? And I'd like to figure out how I can add value in your business outside of the legal work. And you may also know people that I should be working with that is that something you'd be open to talking about? With that kind of approach, with that kind of relationship in person, they might be very open to that. Another one might be, again, if you're having a great wins and great experiences with your client, they love you, you walk on water to them, then you can just be straightforward and say, look, I know you've told me on a number of occasions you've been very happy with the work we've done, that I've done for you, and I appreciate that. I just wonder if there's some other CEOs that you kind of network with or that you're friends with that I may be able to help as well. Can we have a 15-minute conversation and maybe talk through some context that I might be able to help the way I've helped you the last 5 years? And they would say yes. Now, what if they say no? That's your concern, right? That rejection, like I had in high school and college with girls, right? It was that fear of rejection. So what we want to do is just say, you need to know the level of relationship you have to make the appropriate ask. And if you don't think it's there, focus on building the relationship, focus on getting good results, and then you can come back in a year and try that person. So it's not for every client, but it's for the right clients, the ones that already have bought into you hook, line, and sinker because you've done great work and you put them first. That's really what it's all about. The last approach I'll share with you is fun. I call it okay, not okay, which is a weird thing to hear from me. But when you're not okay, people will come to your rescue and make you feel okay. So for example, if I hurt my arm playing sports, my wife will say, oh my God, are you okay? Can I do anything? Want me to take you to the doctor? So what she's doing is coming to my rescue when I'm not okay. So the angle that you would take, and this is done with integrity because you're really not comfortable with the first two options I gave you, you could say to your client, look, Bob, I something I want to ask you. It's way outside of my comfort zone, but it's important to me in my future and in working with you and working with others. I know that you're well connected, and it would mean so much to me if you were open to, maybe talking through a couple of connections that you have that I might be able to help, the way I've helped you the last number of years, but I don't want to overstep any boundaries. So what I'm essentially doing there is I'm not okay because I'm legitimately not. However, what's the client going to do with that? The client's going to come to your rescue. And again, if the client doesn't, then A, the relationship isn't really where you think it is, or B, they're just not a good person at that point. So know that. So the idea is that you want to try to use that approach to get a more proactive opportunity from a client, okay? And then last, as I mentioned about LinkedIn, this is something you all should be leaning into right now. And so looking at the numbers on the stats that you gave, most of you are sitting in the 2 or 3 out of 5. That's really not where you want to be. You really want to be in the 4 or 5 out of 5 category. This is where that hidden business is. And it's just a fast, I've been in sales my whole life. If we had this back in the 80s or the 90s, holy mackerel, it would have been a totally different experience. So here's what I'd like to suggest. Take your cell phone out, hold it up like this. Then I want you to walk over and drop it in a toilet. And I want you to grab a corded phone with a rotary dial. And if you're under 30, you don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Okay. That's the equivalent of you not using LinkedIn effectively. You've got a corded phone with a rotary dial. You need to use this tool because it's there for you to get results with. It's just sitting out there. Now, if you need more training on LinkedIn, I do know that I have got about a 20-minute video on my website. No, I think it might be on YouTube. If you go to Steve Fretzin on YouTube, and it's like a 20-minute tutorial, I think I get into a little more detail than I did today. But that's definitely something you want to focus on. Okay. And so let's just review what we covered today. We covered the importance of taking stock in your law practice, what's changed, Zoom pros and cons. Then we talked about some tips around using Zoom. Hopefully you took some good notes. LinkedIn best practices. So again, you can use that more effectively. And then just think about creating a list of clients, strategic partners, friends that you know are well connected. Get that list together. Go after the low-hanging fruit. Okay. Now, Haley, do we have any additional chat questions that came up while I was talking?
We have one that relates to any recommendations for specific standing desks or standing desk converters.
So I wish I could just see the name on my desk here and tell you what it is. Oh, it's called FUTUIs, Foodie Eyes. That's what I use. It's got a weird symbol over the U, so I'm assuming it's some form of European desk or something like that, but it's just Google it. This one's on like, what's it called? Like not shocks. They're what the heck's it called? It just moves up and down. I forget the name of them. So there you go. But it doesn't have to be an expensive power desk. It can be, this I think was like under $200. And for me, it's just phenomenal moving around like this. So listen, everybody, we're just about at 1 o'clock Central, and I want to ask a favor. And this is really, really meaningful. It was brought up at the beginning that I'd like to send you a survey to get feedback on the presentation. My goal is to improve myself, improve my presentation, make sure that you got value from it. It'll only take you a minute, 2 at the top end. And as a thank you for sending that to me, I will send you all 3 copies of my ebook, my books that are in ebook form: Sales Free Selling, the Attorney's Networking Handbook, and the Ambitious Attorney, which I know you'll get more great tips and ideas from. Okay. So with that, I'm going to say, unless there are any other questions, Haley, are we last chance? 3, 2, 1.
Do you mind if I just state my question here?
Oh, sure. Go for it.
Thank you. This is a wonderful presentation. I really appreciated it.
Thank you.
My question is about increased volume. When you mentioned going from 3 times a week to 5, do you worry about desensitizing people who will just tune you out after repeatedly reminding them what you do?
The answer is it's possible, but the negative is not as important as the positive. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to engage people with new content. I'm not just reposting other people's stuff. I'm writing, I'm doing videos, I'm sharing podcasts. I actually have what's called a social media calendar that Haley helps me with. And essentially what we do is we talk about what is the engagement for Monday, what's the engagement for Tuesday. We use Hootsuite, which is a management, social media management. So we can actually publish things a week or two ahead of time that are gonna then publish later that next week. So we're not scrambling each day to figure it out. We have a plan, we have an Excel spreadsheet with hashtags and with titles and sentences and videos and links. And that's how we're managing this. This is something you're gonna want either to outsource or you're gonna wanna have your assistant, paralegal, somebody else help you with, because otherwise, yeah, it can be very draining on your time, okay? So listen, everybody, we're right around 1 o'clock. I'm gonna wrap up. I just wanna thank you for spending some time with me. Again, I hope this was helpful, and continue to listen to my podcast, Be That Lawyer. If you haven't, check it out. It's a lot of fun. And if you're interested in talking to me about your personal issues, there'll be a question in the survey to set up a meeting with me if that's something that you're interested in. All right. So with that, take care. Appreciate your time. Be well, everybody.